Dear students, welcome to the Bangalore University Content Development Program, and this is from the Department of English, Government First Grade College, Vijayanagara, Bangalore. I am Dr. Famida, presenting to you the first semester BCom English content, the very first chapter with session number 1 of the story The Last Leaf by O. Henry. In the beginning, I would like to tell you what is the learning objective of this particular session. It is to make the students understand personification. What is personification? The outcome of this particular session is that the students will understand what is personification. As this is the introductory session for the particular story, The Last Leaf, I would like to tell you a little bit about the author. The author, O. Henry, that is his pseudonym, was born in 1862 and he is an American short story writer who died in the year 1910. William Sidney Porter is the real name of Oliver Henry. His first story was Whistling Dick's Christmas Stocking, which was written in the year 1899. O. Henry's collection of short stories is world famous and he has written nearly about 600 stories. What is the story The Last Leaf? This story is set in Washington Square in Greenwich Village, and this is the 18th century setup in which the main characters are two girls, Sue and Johnsy. Sue and Johnsy are different people not in the common kind of people, but they are different in the sense that they both work as artists. What do you mean by the word artists? Artists in the sense that they were people who used to paint landscapes, portraits, uh, etch or stencil or do pencil kind of work. And these two characters, Sue and Johnsy, are young girls who work as artists as a way of life. The story is set in the month of November, which indicates cold weather, and it is a season of pneumonia in which the season was so bad that many people were infected. And in this particular story, pneumonia is personified by the author. Of Sue and Johnsy, it is Johnsy who is attacked by pneumonia, and Johnsy is diagnosed as suffering from pneumonia. I would like to tell you a bit about what is the whole setup of this particular story. Little district west of Washington Square is where the streets were run crazy and broken themselves into small strips called places. This is on page number 1, from which I quote. These places make strange angles and curves. One street crosses itself a time or two. An artist once discovered a valuable possibility in this street. Suppose a collector with a bill for paints, paper, and canvas should, in traversing this route, suddenly meet himself coming back without a cent, having been paid an account. So, this is on page number 1 and 2 of the short story, The Last Leaf. So, what is special about this Greenwich village is that it is a place where people who like to do artwork would come hunting for special kind of buildings which were north windows and 18th century gables and Dutch attics with low rents. Then They imported some pewter mugs and a chafing dish or two, and they became a colony. So the whole setup here of the dish of the Greenwich village is that people with an artistic bent of mind came together because of the attractive low rent. You know that artists don't get work on a regular basis. When there is work, they have to work hard and make money. And in this such a kind of setup, the two girls, Sue and Johnsy, had a studio of their own. A studio is a place where the artists work. And here in this studio, one girl is from Maine, that is the name of the area from which, the name of the place from which she comes, and the other is from California. The two girls had met at a hotel in 8th Street, and they both had discovered that they both liked doing artwork. So, as a result of that common interest, they had both set up a studio. This was a meeting that happened in May. But now the story begins in the month of November, and in November there is the cold, unseen stranger whom the doctors called as pneumonia. I would like to tell you a bit about personification. What is personification? Personification occurs when a thing or abstraction is represented as a person in literature or art, and it is an anthropomorphic metaphor. So, for an example, if you have an example like the the Lord is accompanied by the attribution of a personal nature or human characteristics to something non human, or the representation of an abstract quality in human form. For example, the book provides a sustained account of how literary personification works. So, this is an example for that. We could have many other examples. For example, uh, to look at examples of personification, the sun peeked happily from behind a cloud, or the trees danced back and forth in the wind. The car happily squealed from the highway. Or, as you can see in these three examples, we are associating human feelings to non human objects. To give you some more, it was time to go home, but the bell refused to ring. Giving a classroom situation example, it was time to go home, but the bell refused to ring. This is not possible. The bell will not refuse to ring. It will, of course, ring when someone rings it. So, here we are associating non human objects with human qualities. To give you one more example, the delicious smell of cookies pulled me to the kitchen. That chocolate ice cream cone is really tempting me. Okay. Then there is one more example. I can see that news travels quickly. News does not travel by itself, but people transfer or make it travel from one place to the other. So, what is personification? Personification is associating of human qualities, feelings, emotions to non human objects. This is personification. Here, in this particular story, pneumonia is a disease which is an infection of the lungs. But the short story writer O. Henry has made pneumonia a character in the story, because he says on page number 2 in the story, I quote, "In November, a cold, unseen stranger, whom the doctors called pneumonia, stalked about the colony, touching one here and there with his icy fingers. Over on the east side, this ravager strode boldly, smiting his victims by scores, but his feet trod slowly through the maze of the narrow and moss grown places. Unquote. So, as you can see, pneumonia, even though it is a disease, the writer has given it human qualities and calls it his. Okay, talked about the colony with touching one here and there with his icy fingers, this ravager, his victims, his feet, etc. So, pneumonia is a character and he has associated the male gender to this character. So, and he also says in the next paragraph, I quote, Mr. Pneumonia. So, that itself is a clue that pneumonia is personified. Mr. Pneumonia was not what you would call a chivalric old gentleman. Unquote. So, this again is showing us that the character, the disease pneumonia almost becomes a character. This is the technique that is used by the writer O. Henry in this particular story. So, this is the content of session number 1 of the chapter The Last Leaf. Now, I would suggest you all to look at these few words that we have identified as being difficult for you all to understand. Of course, there may be others. I would suggest you to do dictionary work and read the text and look up the meanings of the words that you don't understand. These are a few that we have selected, thinking that they might be difficult for you. Please look at them. Quaint, gable, ravager, might, and traversing. I would now like to present to you the other slide wherein we get to know what kind of multiple choice questions will be asked at the end of the semester. If you look at this question, where do Sue and John C. live? There are 4 choices, and as I mentioned to you before, the correct answer is Greenwich Village. So, this is the kind of question that is expected at the end semester examination. Now, take a look at the next one, which is who is Sue's friend? Here you can make out there is a difference in the spelling. John C. The correct answer is A. John C. Then the next slide, what did Sue and John C. work as? Here the difficulty level is in the use of the word. It's not painters, it's not artisans, it's not farmers, but the correct answer is artists. So that's why I told you to do dictionary work. That's it. That's the end of this session. And I thank you all for having listened to it. Thank you.